I think it's just
Sorry,
no. That's all good.
I've
So
done it now.
I think it's just gone roughly about 6:30. I think so. If that's all good, I'll start off with a karakia. So, te taua mai I rongo, te taua mai I raro, te taua mai I roto, te taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, hui e, tai ki e. Right, thank you everybody. Welcome along to tonight's Raglan update, wastewater update. I just before we kick off, is it Richard? Are you going to be leading the discussion or the slides here?
No, it's going to be led by Steph
Oh,
today.
Steph. Okay, hi Steph.
Have you met Steph, Eugene?
No,
You
no, I
went to
haven't
the last
actually.
one.
I think you might have been at a water governance board meeting.
No, but
No,
she
no.
might come to the next one because they want to update on this project. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, welcome, Steph.
Steph sort of helps us out where Steve used to be.
Oh, okay.
It's her role. She's a planner.
Steph's the new
and
Steve.
She's
the new Steve.
yeah.
Alrighty.
I think she thinks she's a bit better than Steve.
Okay. Alrighty. Oh, well, welcome. First of all, I just before I hand over to you, Steph, I just great report, great update, and it's good to see some really good progress happening here. So I'll hand it over to you to run through the slides, and we'll go into some questions, or just raise your hand if there's any questions you have as we go through the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Feels like the last 2 months have gone quite quickly since we gave you an update, and it's been great to make some good progress on this. So just quickly, last meeting we talked about our preferred option. So that is the new MBR plant, flows being treated through that and then piped over to Wainui Reserve and discharged into the Western Gully. So we ran through this last time. I won't go back over it. Since then, we've been out and done some pretty cool drone footage of the area, which gives you a really good idea of the vegetation and what's happening down in the gully. So hopefully, if technology works, I can actually share some of this with you. Is that all coming through fine?
Yep.
Awesome. So the discharge point would be just north of where the drone is now. Would have some form of naturalized rock channel and then discharging through into the gully. So myself and Richard Puller, our project ecologist and hydrogeologist, did a site visit and we walked right down here. Was a little bit of a climb at the end, but as you can see, it's mainly kikuyu and exotic vegetation. There isn't any type of flowing channel. There's little bits through the kikuyu where you can see some water running, but there's definitely not a clear stream channel through there at the moment. Ooh. Just share the next one, which gives us so if we just stop there, you can see coming out through the dunes that there is already a bit of a channel where we naturally have, we must have some flows coming through, especially in high wet weather events. We can also see some restoration efforts of planting up along the gully banks here. Unfortunately, that hasn't been hugely successful and these plants aren't doing that well. But there's definitely a lot of potential through the gully to regenerate this and make it a lot better than what it is. So if you can see this little slip here, that is about the location that we would have the start point of the outlet. And then we span around to the wastewater treatment plant over the hill. So it was quite good to have that. I think it'll be quite helpful as well going forward, sharing with the community without actually having to go into the gully, which can be a bit of a mission. So we're also happy to share that with anyone here that would like a copy. So getting into what technical work we've been up to. So we've had Warren Gumbley, who's been out and has done an archaeological assessment. So focusing on both the pipeline route and then also the discharge location. Warren didn't find any archaeological sites within either of those locations, which was really positive. He has noted Shalmitten and a previously recorded site over here, which is the R14/136. So he couldn't locate that site when he was out there recently. However, we know it's been previously recorded. It won't be impacted by the proposal, but it is just something to bear in mind when we look at doing our planting plan. So we've also had the ecologists come out and walk the gully. Their findings were that it was currently of low ecological value with prominent exotic plants, but it does have the potential to be regenerated into something really, really awesome. So the ecologists provided some recommendations on how we could enhance the design. So they thought we could look at actually planting this whole area around the discharge point, and also looking at splitting the stream channel into two, just to provide a bit more dissipation of the flows and so slow them down before they enter the gully. So we're still very much working through the concept of how this discharge will function, but it's given us some really good pointers on what the opportunities are there. So we've also had the hydrogeologists come out. They've pulled together a proposal for what groundwater monitoring we need. So we're looking at doing 2 boreholes within the farmland here. So a deep borehole that will go 50 metres down. The purpose of that is to get a really good indication of what the soils are right to the bottom of the gully and also what the groundwater characteristics are. And then a slightly shallower one in the same area at just the 15 metres deep. So that is all underway with engaging a driller to come out and do those boreholes. The plan is to have them in place for 3 months, and that is to allow us to gather 3 months of groundwater data to get a more accurate picture of what's going on. That will then inform us around what are the flows that we can send down there that will be appropriate. Actually, I could probably stop there. Just, was there any questions on those technical investigations so far?
Yeah, I had one.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Steph. Great, looks really good. Look, just on the drilling and stuff, 50 meters is pretty expensive, though. I understand you want to monitor groundwater levels, which is fair enough. But if you just go down on the beach, you've got an escarpment there that's got a lot of. It's probably not toitu. It's probably the other stuff that's not good. But it's fairly exposed along that face. You can actually look at that and see pretty much the layers and what's there.
Yep.
And so do you need to do bore logs or anything like that? I mean, I just think you've got within sort of 50, 100 metres, you've actually got a cross-sectional view of what's there, you know, for 50 metres or so. So that's just my question in terms of saving some cost and stuff. I mean, I understand you want to monitor groundwater levels, which is fair enough, but do you need to log that bore, which adds a bit of time and cost?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it was absolutely noticed by our hydrogeologist when he was out there that you can see these really interesting soil composition along those cliffs. Yeah, definitely. We do recommend that the borehole is done to get the groundwater monitoring. So that has definitely been the recommendation. And whilst we're putting in the bore, we might as well get a good bore log as well. So
if it doesn't cost a lot, then fair enough.
If we're already putting the hole in, to do the groundwater monitoring,
actually, we've already pressed the go button, and it isn't a huge cost. And when you look at the overall cost we've got.
Yeah, no worries. Just a question. Look, but it looks
that-
really good.
that was
Great, great.
And this site walkover really was just a preliminary walkover, Steph, for him to recommend those sort of investigations. And we will need very complete investigations when we go for our consent.
For the consent, yeah.
When do you hope to put the bore in?
Beg your pardon?
When do you hope to have the bore operational?
I
The
think
drillers,
this coming month, isn't it, Steph?
yeah,
that he's
probably
gonna-
early next month by the time the drillers get out there. Yeah.
Yep.
So for the gully itself, it's not appropriate to get any kind of drilling rig down there, so they will just go and do some hand augers through the gully. Cool. So we've also completed a consenting strategy. So I would be more than happy to get into the real details of the rules and the policy framework with anyone that's interested. But for now, I'll keep it high level. So the rules the consents that we will be seeking under the Waikato Regional Plan is a long-term consent for the discharge of treated wastewater to land at Wainui Reserve. So we would look at seeking the maximum 35-year consent for that one, because that is a solution that's had a lot of investment in and is a really positive solution for the system. We'd also do need to get discharge for any pond seepage that happens at the wastewater treatment plant. We are going to keep the ponds active, and we'll talk about that in the next couple slides. We're also getting discharge to air consent, so that will be at the wastewater treatment plant itself and also at Wainui Reserve. So as part of our next technical investigations, we're doing an air quality assessment. Under the Waikato Regional Coastal Plan, we'll be seeking a coastal permit for the discharge of treated wastewater to land, which will reach the coastal marine area. So that's where we're discharging at the Wainui Gully, but eventually that water will seep through and it will enter groundwater within the marine area. And again, we would look to go for a 35-year consent. We also do need to renew the coastal permit for the discharge of treated wastewater flows into the Raglan harbour. So that's to get us through the next few years until we have the new discharge solution operational. At that point, we would then look to reduce that consent to only be in a contingency situation. And for that consent, we would seek a 10-year, so much shorter, and also with a 5-year review condition. So the condition would just be around reviewing how is the system operating, is it working well, have we got our flows right, can we lessen flows or limits, and just having a good review, because we won't know until we turn on the plant exactly how this will operate. And as part of that, we will also need to renew the existing coastal permit for the occupation of the harbour outfall. So again, we'd be looking for a shorter consent duration of 10 years for that one. So we've tested our consenting strategy with Waikato Regional Council, and we've also just this week run through with Angeline to get a bit of feedback. Was there any questions on the consenting?
Questions?
Steph, so the renewal of the existing coastal permit, why is that a 10-year in its current form? Why is it not a 5 and then continuing 10 years?
So
Feels like it's the wrong way around. It should be a 5 of the current condition. Otherwise, you've got 10 years to drag your feet on building this land discharge. Sorry if I'm skeptical, but
no, that's fair enough question. So as part of this long-term consent for the treated wastewater to land, that will have a 5-year lapse period. So that means you have to give effect to this consent within 5 years. So that will keep pressure on council that they need to exercise this consent and have the discharge going. Further to that, we've secured funding. Waikato District Council secured funding for the full discharge options within the next few years. So the funding's there, the intent is there.
So my question is, in the renewal of the existing coastal permit for the discharge of treated wastewater into the harbour, why does the initial consent need to be 10-year under its current situation, and then 5 years renewing? Why is it not a 5-year and then 10-year renewing as a contingency? I think the 5 and the 10 are round the wrong way.
So the 5-year is just for a review condition. So that's a condition to look at how it's operating and if any changes need to be made to parameters. The consent expiry is out to 10 years because we need it as the contingency measure.
Okay, but is it the same consent for, because obviously you're going to need to discharge substantial amounts of treated wastewater while the new land discharge is being built?
Exactly.
Is it then
Yes.
the same consent?
It's the same consent. It's the same, but we would look at lowering the flows or lowering the parameters around the discharge quality.
Parameters, yeah. And,
But we
Chris,
don't, yeah.
the
sorry.
intention is not, part of that 5-year review is to make sure exactly what you're saying is that the council don't drag their feet on establishing the land contact area. And when Steph talks about funding, the council we are now putting up what we need, our revised costs, and the funding for the planting starts pretty much next year in our revised LTP, which is going up as we speak, and council hasn't even seen it yet, but that's what we will be submitting to them. So the idea of a 5-year review is that we don't just merely carry on treating at a higher quality, but we do action the necessary infrastructure for the land contact this Western Gully. Does that help understand?
I understand, but I fear that we get to the point that we've got the MBR operational, and then we've got all these beautiful ideas for the gully discharge, and then someone comes along, whether it's at central or local government, and goes, "Oh, we've already got this consent to discharge to the ocean," or we're just going to keep, this would be a worst case scenario for.
I think the way Steph's checked it up is to try and stop that happening. That's not our intention at all to do that.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I could just say, oh, Mike.
Yep. Just on. So when will we see these costings, Richard? Any idea?
We just submitted them to Keith today, and that's sort of in line with your program that all your council departments were meant to submit them by the end of this week.
Okay. Cheers for that.
And I just like to say, I totally get what Chris is saying, and when you read it like that, 10 and then the 5, but having those placements in place, Steph, is I get where you're coming, what you're saying, but Chris, I from a council point of view, we really, really want this to happen sooner rather than later. We want to get to the end game, and as Steph said or Richard said, we're working hard to make sure that funding's all in place, so there's no pauses as such, and just continue on. And I do think that it makes a lot of sense having a consent of that time, because there is an overlap period of time, and consents cost truckloads of money. And if we get short on that, and we're having to reapply it or an extension of a consent, we're just burning money, unnecessary money.
Yeah, and there just needs to be some kind of clear linkage, I guess, between these consents, so that future people that come into different roles in councils or governments or whatever can't just scroll to the bottom and go, "Oh, we'll just run on that one." So however you do it legally with the consents is up to you guys, but we want to make sure that someone doesn't come into in the future who's not been part of this process in this community in this job and then just goes, "Oh, stuff this, we've already got a consent,"
Yeah, good point.
You just on that, Chris, when we discussed this the other day with council, with Steph and Richard, they were talking about 15 years. I said that's not even a starter. So we're getting down to 10 to 5. My preference is also a 5. However, we'll just let this play through. There's going to be a bit more discussion. So I think at the moment we're comfortable probably with the 5. We're still coming to terms with the 10.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the discussion, but has it been explained why it takes so long? It seems a long time to just put a pipe into a gully.
Richard, do you want to talk to the timing for the funding? Is it gone?
What we're planning on and how we've put in our draft LTP, which council haven't even seen yet, it's different to what it was we started planting for the first next year and the following year, and we build the pump station and the pipeline up to there in the 3rd year. That's our program, okay? Because this will take a while to establish this whole thing, so we can get to work and start looking at the plan, which I don't know if you've seen roughly what we're talking about, hey John? So that's just the way if people want us to move faster, they can make submissions and we'll move faster,
Because I was also asked why fence it off, because the existing outfall obviously doesn't have any fencing around it. So why? Because I'm assuming that, am I right thinking that the planting is to cover up the fence, so it's not as starkly obvious as it otherwise would be?
It's the only reason we'd fence is probably around do you want to talk to this, Peter, around the actual direct discharge point?
Yeah, John. It's a placebo effect, John, which you'd probably know quite well. If people, if you fence it off, nature will return to it and people start to admire it, and it's good. But if you filter it and there's no microbes in it, but if you tell people where it's come from, they've got to sort of rebuild their relationship with the water. If your dog drank in it, and you need to have separation. It needs to be controlled so people, people who are comfortable to enter the area do so. And you'll find, certainly with clean water near the coast, you'll find a lot of wildlife will return. It's a very human thing to look at wildlife using the water, and then you become comfortable with the water. So.
Yeah, I would just also add into that we haven't seen these figures yet, and council debt levels have gone up over 100 million in the last year or two. So I spreading this over 3 years is from a debt level point of view is probably quite good. Like I say, I haven't seen the numbers yet, but we are in a very constrained position with borrowing, and finance costs are high at the moment. Hopefully they'll come down. It's the signal. We just got one the other day, but so yeah, that also leans towards maybe taking a bit longer, in terms of trying to manage our debt.
So, Councillor Kerr, just in terms of that, and for this option here, it actually is the cheapest option that we've explored. So, from a debt perspective, CapEx perspective, it gives the best value for money out of all of the applications.
I'm aware of that, Keith. It's a good option. I like it. Yeah. But I'd like to see the numbers, still. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris.
On the funding, is the plan to have all the funding planned out and sought before the end of Watercare's management, and it be handed over to the new council controlled authority as a already paid for project?
Yeah, I can answer that question for you, Chris. So in terms of standard principle, council's funding, as you know, comes through the long-term plan. It is our intention that the long-term plan, for the time that it gets transitioned over to the new entity, whichever entity that happens to be, they are adopting that strategic priority as part of the shareholders' statement of intent. So really, it's got a 10-year program locked in terms of what the council needs to achieve, both by the way of level of service, renewal and growth. So all of our aspects will be measured based on the current long-term plan. So we're actually in a bit of a fortunate situation that whilst we did an enhanced annual plan this year and we're doing an LTP next year, for the considerations of the Water Services Delivery Plan, which is required under the Preliminary Act, we're probably as most current as we can be out of all of the councils in respect to our strategic work program. So, and this program in particular, along with Tikawata, Huntly and Ngaruahi wastewater treatment plants, and the delivery mechanism and methodology will be locked into that LTP.
And just to add to that, yeah, Keith is right. We're probably in the best position we could probably be in moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months. And dollars is always an issue. It's an issue with everything these days. But you know, we're very focused on that. And as Keith said, this is ended up being one of the most affordable options and probably the best option in the long run. So, and we've been working on figures that were crazy before and trying to fit those in. So, back to you, Steph.
Cool. So Peter's been working on a bit of a high-level process on how the flows will work. So once the MBR is operational and we've got the discharge operational, the normal flows will be treated through the MBR, through the UV treatment, and then out to our land discharge on Wainui. In the event that we get really high flows, high wet weather events, or any saline ingress at the plant, some flows will be diverted into the pond system. So the ponds will be kept operational and they will provide a really good amount of buffering and storage resilience. So flows can go into the upper, lower pond, and then back through into the MBR system out as usual. And really, really worst case scenario, we have flows that will go through the pond system, through the UV treatment, and then out through the existing outfall. So this represents what the current treatment process is now.
Stephanie, have you got that diagram up of that you're talking to?
Yeah, can you see it?
No, I can't. Where is it? Oh, sorry, there's your screen. Sorry, I've got it now.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That? Oh,
yeah,
cool.
got it. Yeah.
Peter, was there anything to add to that process?
It's spot on, Steph. That's spot on.
And so this is where we'd need as the backup contingency. Wastewater will still be treated, but we will have to use that harbour outfall.
Has there been a calculation of volumes required for that scenario?
Of when we have to go to the pond system?
Yeah, and what volume can it still go back to the MBR, and what volume is the crossover where we have to use the old system?
It's quite a complex system, Chris. That's kind of why there's a period where a lot will be learnt while we run it. The first sort of, I'll just give you some ideas of the complexity. The first part of the pond has a wave band, so you can lower the level during dry period. That wave band's only about 1 metre, so you can look at the area of the ponds. There's 4 ponds. But when you get wastewater flow and you send it through a treatment process, it comes both with carbon and nitrogen. Carbon being like a food for the bugs, and nitrogen is it's a harder food to consume. So when you send and that all works when it's going to the MBR, but when you send it to the ponds, the carbon will be lost, particularly in a storm, and then you'll be returning elements of nitrogen with no carbon back to the MBR plant. So we have to understand how storm responsive the catchment will be, how well that will perform. So that's the first element, and it also comes with algae, which we need to appreciate. Membranes, they're actually designed for bacteria, not algae. They do tolerate algae, but and then the additional sort of complexity part of it comes from how storm responsive the catchment is. And so we know how much flow we can send through the MBR, and we can push that to its limit. It's a very defined process, but how much you can return and tolerate the return with a drift in the parameters is something that we need to learn.
So the thing I don't understand about this flowchart
Yep.
is, where is the major bottleneck? It's not the MBR. Is it the hydraulic uptake of the land treatment, or is it the balance going into the MBR? And how come there's not a line coming in the major? We're talking hurricane events. Why is there not a line coming out of the MBR into the harbour discharge if we've got to get rid of water?
So the MBR will only take flow that will go through it. It's filter limited. So the MBR part is the limit, not the conveyancing, the UV, and nor is the discharge. It's a filter, and everybody can appreciate there's only so much you can push through a filter. So it will max out, and we will take it to its maximum. So that's the limit of the blue line. When it starts to drift in parameters, Chris, it looks the same. It still looks like drinking water, but it's got more nitrogen in it. So it would go green if you left it on the shelf quite quickly.
And our planting in our gully would potentially take up that nitrogen,
Definitely.
or that's not a risk
the planting will take a drift in nitrogen. You wouldn't want a persistent drift, and so that gets built into the consent parameters.
Just the nitrogen, Peter, gets built into the consent parameters. I wonder, Steph, if it's worthwhile. So storm charges is often a contribution of I&I, so inflow and infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if we shouldn't, just if it's useful to the community in terms of operations of our pipe network, have something within our consent that helps manage that in terms of trend analysis for pipe renewal, so that it's seen as an ongoing program of work. So it's just not left, and we're utilising mitigation measures rather than prudent O&M, and that might go to Chris's thoughts around, once we leave the building and you've got a new operator and they've got different management strategies, how that might be adopted. So I just wonder if that's an additional something we could look towards in consent around I&I management. That helps that storm charge on the plant.
Yeah, a reporting requirement, I think is what you've heard.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that could.
I would have thought it would have been fairly easy to measure, like you've got your pond volumes, your storage volumes in your ponds, so you know what you can take. You should have some data on storm events and what, the excess capacity that comes through the plant. And it's just how much those ponds will hold before you have to go to your...
So Mike, you are spot on. It's easy to work out the volume of the ponds.
Yeah.
The issue really is with I&I. It's a complex subject. It's about how surcharged is the water table, what is the shape of the storm, what return period are you talking about, how much comes in via covers and how much comes in via cracks, and what's leaking in manholes. You need to run. It's so complicated. You actually need to run the network to work it out, and then back calculate the storms.
But haven't you had some storms?
So it's a fascinating subject, and everyone goes, "Oh, it can't be that hard." Well, it is.
Because Mike, you have a storm in late winter.
Yeah.
Our network will respond totally different than it does in early autumn.
Consecutive storm. So I think
it's quite a complicated thing, and we do look back and look at daily volumes, don't we, Peter? Historically,
and I
think we have looked at that.
Correct, and at a high level, Keith is spot on. You just got to track your performance relative to dry weather flow, and if you're scaling out of the ordinary, something should be done about it. It's as simple as that, and that's the best measure. The best measure is just check that you're within KUI of a domestic network. And then make sure that you're performing within expectation and you don't have spikes. Because this system, once it gets repeatable and understandable, we'll get a lot of confidence with how the main MBR permeate system will go, we'll be looked to use to sort of maximise its use. So
Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
good, and you answered those questions. Another one is, when you have this event and you do fill up your ponds, what's in those ponds? You said there was a carbon issue because they won't have carbon in them. You could just drip feed them back through the MBR plant so that there's enough carbon coming through.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, this diagram shows the return system, horizontal lines going back. So initially we will return, but when the ponds are full and you're still receiving, you've got a massive hurricane come that's quite unprecedented, you still got to have a flow path. It's not acceptable to spill it locally.
Yeah.
And the intent was then to send it on an outgoing tide, much like the current consent.
Yeah, so it's those storms, but I think if you communicate to community well, so people understand that's you're always going to have limits, and nature can be tough at times.
And nature will exceed any limit we give it. Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Sorry, Steph, we interrupted your flow.
No, it was good. Awesome. So we've been doing ongoing engagement. So Rich and I have been keeping Angeline in the loop as representative for Tainui on progress being made. We're also looking at what opportunities we have for the community to get involved in some of these investigations. So we've identified some of the geological mapping could be a good one to get maybe some interested students along to do that with our geotech engineers. We've also connected with Chloe from the local nursery to keep her in the loop around the planting aspect. We've taken Noel, so he's our reserve farm manager, and Glyn, who is the Parks and Open Spaces rep from Waikato District Council, out to the Te Kaupata wastewater treatment plant. And the purpose of that was to really show the MBR system and also the quality of the permeate that's being produced. So you can see in the photo there, that is the final product coming out from the treatment plant. And it looks like water, and it does have the same clarity of drinking water. It's not quite drinking water, but it's a clean water. It doesn't have any smell to it. And that was really worthwhile. I think it was good for Glyn to see that this is what it will look like on the reserve. And we can definitely use Te Kaupata and the photos that we have to help with sharing that with the community as well.
And we do have another site tour coming up at Te Kaupata for the community. So if there's anybody in Raglan that would like to come along to that, there's a booking form on our website. So if that was of interest to see prior to seeing what's going on at their plant itself, then there's an opportunity to see one in action.
Yeah, cheers, Keith. It was exactly the question I was going to ask Steph, actually.
It's the 19th,
People
Eugene.
who have not been there before or anything, if they would like to, if we could make that happen. It is extremely worthwhile going up to see the Te Kaupata plant, because you're getting very much close to a like for like, and it's state of the art, world class.
And as Keith said, that's the booking system for that open day, and it's on the 19th, Saturday the 19th.
Saturday, yeah. So it's next weekend.
October. Okay.
Is that discharge there typical of what Raglan will look like? A similar quantity type?
Oh, quantity? Not sure about Peter. Definitely in terms of its clarity.
Yeah, so that pipe, there's a 250 diameter pipe, I think. Whereas Raglan's about a 400 diameter pipe going out to the.
And this is the slightly smaller population, doesn't it, Peter, than Raglan probably?
Yeah, this plant will deal with up to 6,500 PE, people equivalent. And when it gets its third train in, it'll be up to 9,000 people equivalent.
So it might be double that flow sort of thing.
I wouldn't say double.
No.
Be very similar. Maybe slightly big more. Yeah.
Double today's flow, yes, we might be right. But not the future flow.
There are better pictures of this that shows the heron hanging out rather than me hanging out in front of it.
That was my photo. Peter in his hat.
Yeah.
So we've also got the Waikato District Council comms team supporting us with locking in some community drop-in sessions. So there will be one in November, depending on how that goes and the amount of interest. We will do another one in February. So at the moment, we're looking at doing a drop-in session somewhere within the township. So perhaps the library is quite a good location. And then also one actually within the reserve itself to capture a lot of those recreational users. So we'll share that once a date has been locked in. This is a good time now that we've gathered a bit more information around, is this option feasible? And we can actually go out to the community and say, hey, yeah, we're still ongoing with our investigations, but we've had a look at it from an ecological perspective. And we've got a bit of a concept plan now and visualizations that we'll be able to share.
You, Chris?
That drop-in centre will be the first thing in community engagement, or you're planning to do like a evening presentation with Q&A beforehand, or just straight drop-ins? Because drop-in centres are great, but they're like, there's only so many people that can talk to people one-on-one.
Yeah.
I think a presentation at some point needs to occur with a few of your technical experts able to, because a lot of people haven't engaged with the process since we were, talking about, subsurface drip irrigation a mile away,
Yeah, so it will be advertised. So we'll make sure we get the word out that we've got this preferred solution. We've got a land discharge solution. Really encourage people to come to drop-in sessions. We will have the project team at those drop-in sessions. We will then follow that up with further information provided online. If there are particular interest groups, we would be happy to arrange more of a presentation around any specific questions.
I don't think maybe you personally are ready for the level of expectation and interest that you're going to get from some pretty passionate locals. So
yeah, no, but we're aware that we will generate a lot of interest, and the comms engagement team are aware, so that'll be part of how we set this up and run it. Yeah.
Give us an insight, Chris. Are we going to?
Well, you saw
do you
the
think
last
50 of your mates are going to rock on up?
I would agree with Chris, because we saw it the last time we had an incident in respect to discharge, and then the community's level of interest in terms of understanding the rationale behind it, what the implications were, and the impacts on the overall community. It was very strong, and I tend to favour what Chris is saying in terms of making sure that we've got some sort of group pitch and story that we can tell a large audience rather than one-on-one. But I think that may be able to be achieved just with an amount of resource that we give it to enable those groups, or we use the community board for the purposes of an explanation just prior to the drop-in session. So locals
part of getting the word out. Yeah, that's definitely the intent of getting the word out. Yeah,
I would highly advocate for some kind of midweek community meeting, presentation, whatever, say on a Wednesday or Thursday night, with a drop-in centre followed the following Saturday. You need to kind of, I think, present something midweek on a school night to the proper locals, and then run your drop-in centre when people maybe have time to drop in on a Saturday and chit chat. And those two events need to kind of work in unison, because I think it's really key that we get this right.
Yep.
Do you think having people all there together in one time will work better initially?
I think both will work better. I think that having an initial meeting, like a presentation, because we used to have Stephen, and that we did used to have community meetings and presentations quite regularly, and now we're sort of this forum, which is more technical. But we probably need to have someone tell the journey so far, and community board introduce the panel and experts, and actually do the full hour and a half or even 2 hour meeting in the classic sense. And I would follow that up with a drop-in center, because I think we've experienced in the past with other projects that have been kind of had a lot of community interest, like think about Places for People. We did the little parklets, and drop-in centers work really great, but if you don't have kind of that initial presentation of content in a more formal way, a lot of people walk away from a drop-in center and say, oh, so-and-so said this, and I was chatting to so-and-so and they said this, and you can actually end up with a
lot of misinformation.
It's all about how people interpret what the person they were talking to. So someone talks to Keith, someone talks to me, someone talks to Eugene, and they all interpret what we say slightly differently. And without having your very clear professional presentation to fall back on, I think it is a little bit of a risky strategy.
I'd endorse your recommendation, Chris. So we'll take it away and see what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do too, Chris. I think that's a very good point, and it is very important to the community, and I think we can work. So we have both. I agree, doing something on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and then following it up with site visits or drop-in sessions on that over that weekend would be really good. And depending on how long it is, whether it's an hour and a half or a couple of hours, we might be able to run one sort of early, late afternoon and then into an evening, because we were bursting at the seams when we were there at that hall last time, and we weren't there for a good
good news
story we had, but
this is a positive story, so it's kind of
but we weren't there for a good problem. But what happened was everybody appreciated everybody fronting up and laying it all out on the table, and I think that went down really well. So I think we can really build.
And drop-ins are powerful, so I don't want to say, because you can delve into detail one-on-one with the really interested people, but yeah, they're both very useful tools, and I think we need to, in this instance, use them both.
I'd actually endorse Chris. That's the way Raglan does things. They have a big meeting, and then everybody's got a chance to hear everything at once, and then the drop-in. So I'd agree with that.
Okay.
And we're happy with the timing that would be kind of within the next month, that we've got enough info to share. Awesome. Cool. No, thank you for that. That's really good insight. That was almost right. Yeah. So our key next steps are the borehole drilling and mapping, the community event and drop-in sessions. We're going to kick off our water and equality reporting. We'll keep progressing on our concept design and visualizations and working on kind of what that treatment process looks like and some parameters around our consent conditions. And then we will start to pull together the resource consent itself. And we've got a bit of an update on progress of the MBR plant. So I'll let Pete.
Yeah, I was enjoying listening. So the photo that you can see there is a very small element of the treatment plant. It sits in between the two ponds. So there's a pond to the south and a pond to the north. So the new plant does quite a few, roughly about 4 times what the current plant does. Most of the large civil structure is the tank that you can see there with a bit of water in it. It's currently doing its water testing. And then the concrete slab just to the left of that is the screenings facility. So it's a structure that's just built up about 0.5 metre on one side and about 1.5 metres on the other, and that's where flow goes through in stages through screens there and grit removal. Then the building on the left hand side is the blower and electrical control room, and that's pretty much the liquid stream plant in its entirety. Everything else there is roads, temporary accommodation, and a few tents. So we have pretty much finished the concrete structure. So the civil build's done and dusted, and the screens area finishes on the 15th. So in 5 days' time, the civil team leave. And then it's pretty much a mechanical fit out, and once the mechanical fit out comes, the electrical people then following after that. So that's kind of where we are. So we're expecting most of the construction element to finish In December, we then start spinning up seeding and tuning and loading the software, and that will happen early next year. So the intended program was we'd finish in June, and we remain ahead of that program by a reasonable margin.
Great
So-
work, Peter. Looks good. And
Yeah.
I was going to ask how you ahead of schedule, but you just said you are. Well done.
How are we compared to budget, Pete?
So like the budget, we're on budget. The main challenges we have, once we know the discharge solution, which is the purpose of this meeting, there's clearly, as you can tell from this meeting, there's been a lot of emphasis on being able to return flows to the process. That's something that we would need to start to cater for, and that is catered for in the plant, but there needs to be some pump stations to return flows. That's not something that I've anticipated here. I would advocate that's built as part of the plant. So there's elements that need to be added, not in this photo, but elsewhere on the plant to cater for this discharge arrangement that's now getting defined. So I call that integration works. There's a little bit of integration works that should follow on from this because you've got the right team. So that's kind of where we are.
Good work, on budget and ahead of time.
Yeah.
2 ticks.
Always good to hear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's certainly very comparable to other plants elsewhere in the country. I know that councils don't get together. I'm sure when you councillors get together with other councillors, they don't talk about their treatment plants or their capacity, but you should. I think you'd be very proud of yourself if you did. You've got a lot of neighbouring councils that are doing the same thing, and you certainly lead in this space. So
Yeah, we definitely do sing the praises of the Tico for the plant, that's for sure. So we can look forward to adding Raglan into those conversations.
So this is a competing team, Eugene. They will want you to sing their praises in the future. That's how you get value. You have 2 teams, okay? Yeah.
Getting best bang for buck, eh? Good work, Peter.
Yeah.
Just a question, probably not related to the pond, but about what backup system is there for electrical, when we actually have blackouts?
Yeah, it's a good
That's
question.
one question, and that's probably for the next, but that's probably for the next session. And the other one is about, what's happening with the pump stations and, the stuff that happens when we have blackouts. That's sort of before it even gets to the pond. So that's probably something for the councillors that are sitting there listening.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that next time if you want, Angela? Because like everything, it's not simple. Yeah.
No, it's down there.
This site, we're currently waiting for a power supply from wells. So that's one of my biggest project risks is we need another. We've got overhead lines that come up south from this picture, from the bottom. There's some overhead lines coming in from the top side of this photo. And the timely delivery of that, we'll also need a backup generator. So running the plant in a power outage is simple, just because you have a single point of power use. The network's the harder problem part of your question.
Peter, question, just on your pumping stations to recirculate if you do get overflows, is there any opportunity to use the existing pumps that are there in the current operation? Repurpose?
So there's not really many pumps up here. The pumps from the network pump the flow here, and then this whole, the original plant just operates primarily by gravity.
Right.
So we just need some floating pontoons, but it's the pipe work and connecting it all up. So, yeah, so this discussion, when it largely has a final answer and it's arriving at a final answer, the integration works. It will shape the integration works because the part A needs to join to part B. So.
Right. In terms of outflows at the moment, with your piping coming out of that unit, what have you done there? Like how much of that have you installed, given you've done the earthworks and stuff, or have you got to come back?
Once the plant's up and running, subject to getting a power supply, the flow that arrives will just pipe out down to the day pond. The main difference being these ponds are a little bit green. It will be clear looking water. So it'll look like tap water filling up the day pond.
Yeah, I just haven't really answered that. Just in terms of the piping coming out of that plant, will
Yeah.
it come out at ground level there now, existing ground level? Is that where it discharges out of that treatment system?
Sorry, yeah. It pops out just at the bottom of the pitcher, and then it will go into a gravity system, and
Yeah.
then pop out in the day pond. So you'll get visual sight of it close to the plant, and then you'll get visual sight of it in the day pond.
And then from there, it's from the day pond, it's going to be taken up to, you'll have to pump it up to Wainui.
While we're waiting for the scheme, it'll go out the current discharge and be UV'd,
Yeah.
just for good measure. Not that the UV will be doing anything. In the longer term, it's by the day pond. You're correct. You'd pick it up there in tanks, and so that you have a little bit of control volume. So you build it up in a tank and you'll pump it away to a bowel mouth structure that's in the gully.
Yes.
John's got a question.
Yeah, I seem to recall that we were talking about solar panels floating on the ponds at one time, so wonder where they come in.
Yeah, so the solar panels were taken down to allow us to build the plant, because you need a fair bit of crane ability to build the plant. So where you can see where the black tarmac bows out at the top of the picture there, that's where trucks will turn around to because every Sewage Works needs to be able to take deliveries. So there's a turnaround, but the lead-in area where the current track goes, it'll probably move over to the left, and we'll put the solar panels back on site. Later on, when we do a solid stream, we'll probably relocate them again. There has been an option tabled by Gil Myers is the operator, and he quite likes we also own the land north of the dome, which is sort of north of the pond on the right-hand side. There's a little gully there. It's quite a nice place to build out a solar array there. Putting them on pontoons on the ponds, my concern there is there's a lot of bird life in Raglan. It's and they love coming to these ponds. They cover your solar panels in bird shit. So. And as they clean up, you'll get more bird life. So I think the right thing is freestanding solar panels. So at the moment, we're going to put some on the building that we've got planned. So some will go there and some will go back on the ground mount.
And while we haven't advanced it, just in terms of power and well have expressed an interest because of power outage and there is a major line running down to the plant. I've been able to put a battery close by on that power supply. There's a lot of work in that discussion, that simple discussion, but they are looking to see what else they might be able to do to provide some continuity of power during outage back through the network. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that conversation unwinds in the goodness of time.
Yeah. So I think when we come up with those options, Keith will circle back to you because those threads are useful to join up. We get a lot of benefit from their BES battery system because it improves power quality, not just the so you get a lot less spikes get filtered out from the battery setup. So it's a liquid stream upgrade. There are solid stream upgrades that typically follow this. It is a first and major step, and it's a huge change to the effluent quality. We look forward to showing people around when there's a bit more to show, and I would say there's a bit more to show on site, March time next year.
All right.
That's us.
Very good. Very good. My screen's starting to go a bit funny here, so I'm struggling to see what's going on. Oh, that's better. All right. So we have any more questions for the experts while they're in the room? No.
Just
Yes.
one question. Will, like yourself, Keith, Peter, Eugene, be like available for our community engagement events?
Yes.
I'd
Yeah,
love to meet you in person, Chris. We've not met in person.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can't tell if you're shorter than your digital self or taller than your digital self. I'll work it out. Yeah.
No, absolutely, Chris. I think this is a thing that we really want to, support and be a part of. And what I would like to say is I'd just like to congratulate the community and everybody. I know everybody that's been involved is not here on the screen at the moment, but everybody working together has made huge strides here. And I sort of have had a bit to do with the Te Kaupara plant, and although we've got the most state-of-the-art plant there, I feel as though we're taking 2 steps forward and a couple back sometimes. And just the advancements that we've done in this project has been really good, and that's because of the collaboration with everybody and working together to get the right outcomes for the community. The affordability is a big part of it as well. And so I'd just like to commend everybody for doing what to get to this stage. So we're looking forward to those community drop-in centres sessions and meetings too. So it'll be great. So I don't have any expertise, so I'll be definitely just directing people into into these guys here. So if there's nothing else, I'll just finish off, close our meeting with a karakia, and we'll go from there. So
Just
here,
one thing.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, look, it's not related to the wastewater. It's just another issue. Couple of questions. If I don't know if I could talk to Steph or Richard or someone just quickly after, before we finish off. It's like I say, it's not related to wastewater.
Okay, then what we'll do is I'll just finish this off, and then if a couple of people want to stay online, they can do that, and let everybody to get back to their evening. So. Okay, so inuhia, ki te uru tapua tānei, kia waitea, kia mama te nākau, te wairua, te tinana, te hini naro e te ara takutu, koe rā e rongo, whakaaerea ki runga, kia waitea, ai rā kia waitea, hui e, tai ki. Have a good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming in.